So the types of artworks that I make are mostly print-based. Screen printing is probably the method that I use for the majority of the things I make. I make prints on paper, I screen print on t-shirts, bags. There's a really good mix of fine art versus commercial printing in my practice. Typically, I start a design in Photoshop. If I need to do research, I'll do that. I'll kind of design things suited for screen printing, so the fewer the colors, the better. And then after that, I come down to articulate ink. Most of the time I work at home up to that point, but I do all of my printing here at Articulate Ink Studio. All of these facilities are here that are needed to complete a print project from start to finish. So yeah, whether I'm using a screen printing table or the t-shirt press, or if I decide to do a letterpress project, all the equipment is there and ready. So a typical day in the studio would be, say if I'm printing an edition on paper, I would get my screen coated because that takes about an hour to dry. While that's drying, I'll get my paper cut down, I'll get my station set up, I'll mix my inks if I need specific colors, and have that ready to go. Then I'll expose the screen. That takes a little bit longer to dry. And then I'll start printing. And if it's multiple colors, typically by the time I clean up after the first layer, the paper's dry enough to get cracking on the second layer. Yeah, I can finish a project in one day, typically, unless I'm printing on a bunch of clothing. Printing can be quite physically taxing, and sometimes by the end of the day, pulling a squeegee a few hundred times, I'm just too tired to continue. And if I'm not happy or if I'm hungry in the studio, yeah, I just can't get anything done. I gotta stop and just come back the next day refreshed. Where do I get my ideas from? The most complicated answer would be everywhere. Movies, books, conversations, other artists, my travels. Most of my subject matter these days revolves around the occult and like fortune telling. So if I say sit down to do a design about tarot cards or palmistry, I do as much research as I can. I see what other artists have done. I look at what it actually means to do that sort of divination. And all of those things combined, I kind of come up with what I want my aesthetic to look like for those things and what I want my design on, whether it's a t-shirt or prints or tote bags, or if I want to get some pins made, what sort of makes sense for me at that point. I have some products for sale at the Broom Closet Witchcraft Supply Shop. I tend to hang out there quite a bit, and I'll go through the books and I'll look at all the products there, and I find a lot of inspiration in that shop actually. One print I made is called the Dark Apothecary, and it has a bunch of different, say, little bottles, black salt books, things that you might be able to undo a curse, or I kind of picture it as a story. And then maybe have some objects that you could use in magic to change the outcome of a situation. I think I first got into art when I was a teenager. I was working at the Regina Public Library in the children's section, and on my breaks I would go upstairs to the adult section and just kind of look through the art books. And I came across one of Jean-Michel Basquiat's books, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen or thought that art could be. I kind of had a limited education at that time and thought that realism or like landscapes or photography was kind of like your only option for that. And his art kind of blew me out of the water. And I was like, I think I want to be an artist. So I took some art in high school, which was cool. Kind of decided after my first year of university that I would take some drawing classes, some painting, the typical classes you need for your first year of art. I got really into sculpture. I took that for about 3 years. I really liked building things and using my hands. But at the same time, I wasn't quite translating my ideas into a 3D format. There's just kind of a divide there. Like, I liked making things, but I couldn't really conceptualize the project properly. So I was getting pretty frustrated, and I thought, I'm just gonna try printmaking. It's the only class I haven't taken yet. Let's just see what happens. And it turned out to be the perfect medium for me. I don't know what it was exactly, but my ideas just kind of flowed out in etchings and screen prints, and it made me really excited. And I graduated in 2011, and I've been doing printmaking ever since. It was the medium paired with a really great professor, Robert Truskowski. He was just like, we always joke that like printmaking is like a cult at the university, and he's our charismatic leader. So yeah, he was just so passionate. It just kind of rubbed off on everyone there. It was such a great community at the U of R in the printmaking studio. I guess my goals with printmaking is just to continue. I'd maybe like to try some more woodcut pieces. That's something that I haven't explored a ton. And also etching, I did it a lot in school, but I've forgotten half of the stuff. I haven't done it in so long. And I really love the Southern Graphics Conference that happens mostly in the States. It's all about printmaking and design. You just feel a huge sense of community when you're there. I was lucky enough to go to St. Louis, Portland, and Atlanta, and I'd go again for sure in an instant. There's definitely days where everything I'm making I think is just crap, and that's gonna happen. Like, you can't be on your game every day. I'm really hard on myself, so I try to just say, take a couple of days, clean slate, start a new idea, or come back to an old one that you haven't been working on for a while. I think something that's helped me along the way is just to look at as many different designs and artworks as you possibly can. You'll learn what you like and what you don't like and what you can adapt in your own work. So many art accounts like on Instagram. Yeah, just look at as many images as you can. You'll learn a lot about yourself through looking at other people's work. So I had the opportunity to work with David Thauberger on a couple of prints a couple of years ago. I actually originally did a commission through the Mackenzie Art Gallery for some tote bags with one of David's images on them. So I'd met him about a year before, and he approached Articulate Ink about having an edition printed in our studio. I was absolutely terrified. I'd never taken on a project that large before, but I thought there's no way that I can like not do this. It would be a huge learning opportunity. So he ended up coming into the studio, and I was printing an edition of prints that I was working on with Shayna Stock at the time. So he just came in to have a look, and he said, well, looks like you know what you're doing. And so that was it, I was in. And I think the most interesting part of it was the fact that we were creating the prints like you would a painting, because David does a lot of paintings, so we were kind of layering up the ink on the paper like you would a painting. And it was kind of unorthodox for me, like being only a printmaker. I was used to printing 1 or 2 layer prints, and David comes in and he's got a 16 layer screen print, so intricate. The registration was tight. We were printing like transparent black, and then medium transparent black, and then black, and then all of these shadows and textures were being created, and so I was learning all about new ways to make things kind of pop as well. I love a challenge. At the same time, yeah, it can be really scary, and you're like, how am I gonna make this happen? I'm okay with deadlines. as long as I have an image that I know can be translated well through printing. We still do commercial printing at Articulate Ink for nonprofits quite a bit of the time, musicians and things like that. And this Lumsden Beach Camp was always a big one for us. It was about 400 shirts. And if you had to hit it twice just to build the ink up, that means you were using the squeegee 800 times. A lot of commercial printing is done through automated presses, like in larger print shops, but we do everything by hand. Historically, printmaking or printing has been a commercial endeavor with newspapers, brochures, books, things like that. It kind of sometimes devalues fine art when it's printed. I find it really interesting running a shop where I'm selling t-shirts and at the same time I'm selling prints with the same image, and they're valued completely differently, even though it was the same amount of work that went in. It's like you can sell a t-shirt for 30 bucks. A print might be all the way up to $100 depending on how many colors are in the design and how intricate it is and how big the edition is. There's lots of factors that go into it. I started off in fine art printing as an artist, and then I had the opportunity to work in a commercial shop, which was really interesting, and I learned a lot of different ways that I could use those machines and commercial methods in my own work. I actually had some fortune teller cards made at a commercial shop, so they were printed, cut, and then, this is really nerdy commercial print talk, but like die cut and perforated so that you could peel back a circle and it would reveal the fortune underneath. So things like that have helped me out with my own products. I've been really getting into making these wood pieces. It's something I can do at home. I have done a couple of woodcuts that I've printed from. That's typically what you do. Is you'd carve out a wood block and then use it to print or to make prints from. But I always thought that the block itself was so beautiful that I kind of wanted to just make some of these as individual artworks.